Kentucky quarterback Will Levis is being hyped as the first overall pick over guys like CJ Stroud and Bryce Young in the 2023 NFL Draft by guys that you have heard of. My name is Christian Williams from the Devy Royale, and today we're going to take a look at Will Levis's prospect profile to see if that hype's warranted.
When you look online or you go to social media, everyone in the 2023 draft class are talking about who's going to be QB1. It's all about Bryce Young from Alabama and CJ Stroud from Ohio State. When you talk to people in the league, Will Levis is very much in that conversation. In fact, I've talked to multiple teams that either have him as the number 1 quarterback or the number 2 quarterback in the class. What's most interesting to me, we've talked about all the physical traits that Will Levis has. The first thing that comes up in all of my conversations is the intangibles for Levis. How great he is in the weight room, how wonderful of a leader he is, how he's won everyone over in the building, everyone on campus, how hard he works. I had a scout tell me, I don't care what your grade is when the season's over based off of tape, it's only going to ascend when teams get around him, interview him, and get to know him. He's that special of a guy.
That clip you just heard was from Todd McShay, one of ESPN's most celebrated draft analysts. He did that as a sideline report in their game against Ole Miss a couple of weeks ago when this video was recorded. And so now that you know that I'm not lying with a clickbait title, make sure you hit us with a subscribe, drop us a thumbs up as well. Let's get into Will Levis's prospect profile. All right, guys, so Will Levis's high school background is a little interesting because he was a 3-star recruit. He was top 30 in his class in terms of pro-style quarterbacks, but he really didn't have high school stats that would have levied that. He didn't put up big numbers in high school. He completed 54% of his passes, over 5,400 yards, and he was really the starter for 2 years. It seems like he played as a sophomore a little bit, but he wasn't the full-time starter. Through 55 touchdowns his final season, he had 27 touchdowns to 8 interceptions, and he accumulated 15 over the course of his 2.5 year career. He did add some rushing. He had 327 rushing yards and 12 touchdowns. So he had 6 touchdowns in each of his first 2 seasons in high school. So he comes into Penn State, and yes, so he goes to Kentucky right now. If you didn't know, he did transfer after 3 years at Penn State. His first year, he was behind Trace McSorley and Sean Clifford, and then Sean Clifford won the job. And so over his 2 years at Penn State, he accumulated just 102 attempts. He completed just under 60% of his passes, and really nothing he was doing was justifying playing him over Sean Clifford, other than having the tools that we will talk about when we get to the scouting report portion. He transfers to Kentucky, and he becomes the starter full-time. He works in a pro-style offense, and so he was able to put up some numbers back in 2021. 233 completions, 353 attempts for 66% passing, 2,800 yards, 26, 24 touchdowns, 13 interceptions. So we saw some growth, but we did not see this high-level prospect. We saw a lot of carelessness with the football. We saw a lot of holding the ball. Those are things that are still there. We'll get to in the scouting report. But the background of him transferring, he actually didn't want to. He has said he is going to be a Nittany Lion until the day he dies. He very much so appreciates his time there, but he was looking out for himself, and he wanted to show people that he was as good as CJ Stroud and Bryce Young. And so he transfers, he gets the starting role, and now we're kind of seeing what he is. The reason Will Levis is getting all of this hype, though, is the incredible traits that he has. He has got a rocket of an arm. He's got athleticism that mirrors that of some of the best quarterbacks in the NFL currently. And those two things alone are kind of enough for NFL evaluators to drool over him, because the ball pops off of his hand in a different way. It's the arm strength that we see from Josh Allen and Justin Herbert when he's at his best. It's the ability to drive the football into tight windows is more translatable than throwing the ball far. Now, I know you'll see a lot of college quarterbacks. Sure, Bailey Zappi last year, shout out Bailey Zappi for his work in his first career start when this video was recorded. But Bailey Zappi last year was able to throw the ball 50 yards downfield, 40 yards downfield. He doesn't have that elite arm strength that Will Levis possesses. And I'll tell you what, he is going to be a player that NFL teams drool over. The ball pops off of his hand. Now, he also is able to create outside of structure. And when he does, he loses his vision, he loses his accuracy at times, but he's able to throw and he's able to change his arm angles as he's on the move. And that out of structure stuff is what makes great quarterbacks great. And so you see all of this hype and you say, well, I mean, looking statistically, he doesn't look anything like CJ Stroud, Bryce Young, and he really doesn't have the recruiting background of guys that we've seen in the past, like Trevor Lawrence and Justin Fields. Um, but ultimately, you're going to see that arm strength and you're going to be very happy about it, right? The athleticism, though. So he has a very fearless running style. He is a guy who's going to gain extra yardage. I use Kyler Murray as an example, and it's probably not fair to Kyler Murray, but Kyler Murray is always one. He'll dip out of bounds, he'll fall to the ground, he'll avoid hits, which is smart. He's taking care of his body. But some teams really want that guy like Josh Allen who's going to take on a hit and really gain every inch that you can, because football is a game of inches. And Will Levis is absolutely that. You'll see him do front flips. He'll get turned over. You'll see him lower his shoulder into guys. He's definitely not one that shies away from contact. And from all accounts of people that know him, that translates into his leadership. And that's why he's probably higher on NFL awards than he is the draft community. The draft community looks at statistics a lot and they mostly don't have resources within programs and can't really talk to coaches and can't really talk to guys. That's even the case for me. I don't know anyone at Kentucky, but that's why we have to listen to what people are saying about his leadership and him buying in. That clip from McShay that you heard earlier, that's telling. And so when you start to say, is he worth the top overall pick, the first overall pick, you don't necessarily know everything about a player. And that's why quarterbacks are a very inexact science. But a lot of Levis's game, if you look at Levis and say, can I mold him into something that I see as a top NFL quarterback, then you're going to take that risk in the first round. Now, he does have some faults and he does have some weaknesses. One of them being he holds the ball in the pocket. His pocket awareness is not very good. Last year at Kentucky in 2021, his offensive line was very good. A lot of those guys got drafted. And so that turnover with the offensive line has shown some of those weaknesses where he's waiting for guys to get open. Now, I would love to see him throw with more anticipation, and that would really solve a lot of these things. But it's really rare to see a college quarterback that throws with anticipation. Bryce Young does it. CJ Stroud can do it at times, but he's also a guy that likes to have a wide receiver show open before he lets the ball go. Will Levis does that. And so I think that's one thing that NFL evaluators are going to want to see him improve in. Another thing is just ball placement. His downfield accuracy, while he has the arm to make every single throw on a football field, his downfield accuracy is not that good. Often he'll leave it short, he'll sail the ball. I think too, when you start to talk about hospital balls or balls across the middle, is he putting his receivers in danger? Are his receivers going to get lit up because he misplaced a football? Yes, I think a lot of that has been corrected early in 2022. Those little ball placement things are important, especially when you get to the NFL and everything's moving faster. Those are balls that receivers are not going to appreciate. I think, though, he does have the arm strength to get it into tight windows. The cover two stuff that the NFL is doing right now to try to negate this explosive passing game, Will Levis has the ability to beat it in the same way that Herbert, Mahomes, and Josh Allen do. And so when you start to talk about that, I think that's why there's so much hype around Will Levis. Would I take him in the first round? We'll get to that. I think that ultimately I'm going to end up with a second round grade on him unless he improves on these things throughout the rest of the season. Now, he did miss this last game. He wasn't able to play. He had a foot or ankle injury or something like that. But we need to see him grow. We need to see him get the ball out of his hands quicker, trust his receivers a little bit more. He's got two freshman wide receivers that will be playing in the NFL as well. So I think those things matter. In terms of player comparisons, let's get into that. There have been two player comparisons that I really latch on to. I've mentioned this player twice already. It's Josh Allen. I think that when you look at just play style and what Levis is able to offer, what Levis is able to do, I think that his game is very similar to Josh Allen's in a big arm, kind of inaccurate coming out, a little bit older of a prospect too. So you wonder, can you actually develop this kid? He's going to be, I believe, 23 when the draft happens, and he will turn 24 before his rookie year. So he's older. He's a fifth year guy. But and Josh Allen is the exception, right? It's rare. Well, Josh Allen and Jalen Hurts, I guess. It's rare that you see guys improve on accuracy because a lot of the time, mechanically, you're doing everything right and you just are a little bit inaccurate. It takes a special quarterback to be a pinpoint thrower with elite arm strength. But NFL teams are cocky in the way that they feel they can develop guys. And so they're going to draft the guy that they think is going to become that, or they think that they can make them into that. And so when I see Will Levis play, I say he looks like Josh Allen, and I can't get that out of my head. But another player that I've seen recently, Carson Wentz, a guy that holds onto the ball a little bit too long. He's got great tools, but ultimately the pocket feel is not there. And so I think you take a look at what Carson Wentz's peak was back in 2017 and you say, well, yeah, that's worth a first rounder. And I think that Carson Wentz has struggled at times. I think, Will Levis does have a little bit of issue with footwork. I think oftentimes he can get off his platform even while standing in a pocket, and that is the reason his balls sail. But those little tweaks, and Carson Wentz was able to mask some of that. Josh Allen was able to fix some of that. And so if you take those two players and kind of fuse them together, I think you get a first round worthy quarterback. The ultimate question here, though, is he worth the first overall pick? And, I mentioned CJ Stroud, I mentioned Bryce Young. Will Anderson should be in the discussion anyway. It's a borderline generational edge prospect that he will be the best talent. We know what quarterbacks do to NFL teams, and we know that there are a lot of quarterback needy teams at this point. So is Will Levis actually worth the first overall pick? My answer is no. I don't think that he is better than CJ Stroud or Bryce Young at this moment. Bryce Young, he might not be the most elite, athlete in the world or have the most elite tools, but he is one of the most intelligent football players in college football right now. The way he plays, he is able to mask some of that athleticism fault or the arm strength faults. He's able to mask some of that with his highly intelligent football IQ. He throws with anticipation. It's beautiful to watch. He's able to evade sacks. We know the play from the game against Texas. CJ Stroud, on the other hand, just an elitely accurate thrower of the football. He places the football in incredible spots. He also is a quick decision maker, and I think he's able to tick through his progressions in a way that Will Levis can't. And so right now, I think that those two, they might not have a higher ceiling than Will Levis, but I think they are the safer picks. I think those two players are for sure going to be NFL starters in 6 years, whereas I'm not sure about Will Levis. I think that you can look ahead and say, he might be one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL, or he might be backing up Geno Smith in Seattle. Shout out Drew Lock. But overall, I would say no, he's not worth the first overall pick. There are too many other options, but we're hearing the buzz. We're hearing what this is for Will Levis. And so we have to consider the fact that Will Levis is going to be a top 10 pick in the 2023 NFL draft. So adjust accordingly. If you're looking at this from a dynasty fantasy football perspective, I think that you have to be in on Will Levis because he's going to get 4 to 5 years to develop. And so I think that's a good thing to know and a good thing to have. So remember, guys, if you enjoyed this video, make sure you like and subscribe. This will be a series. I will be doing a few more of these. And so I'm excited to dive into the 2023 NFL draft. Remember, hit that notification thing too, because we've got a lot of videos coming out. Kevin is doing a lot of really good work. He's doing some freshman highlights to get you ultra prepared for the 2025 NFL draft. And so there are a lot of good things happening here on the Devy Royale YouTube channel. As always, we appreciate you guys. Have a good week.